Hope everyone had a great and safe Thanksgiving. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew. I am Jeff Martin alongside the Trendsetter Brian Berga, and we are recapping Full Gear, but also giving you your Survivor Series preview. Trendsetter, what is going on, man? How are you doing?
I'm trying to recuperate from eating way too much turkey. But at the end of the day, it was great. It was worth it. It was a cheat day, cheat meal. I loved it, but it was nice to officially have a day off. And I appreciated it. And, spending time, to reflect. It's that time of the year, Jeff. It's the holidays are approaching, but a special season
Here.
is approaching, and that is WrestleMania season. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I'm looking forward to that season. That's my Christmas. That's my New Year's. WrestleMania season. We are on that road, Jeff. And to me, Survivor Series is the start of that road.
Well, I'm thankful for a lot of things. I'm thankful that I'm able to do the show with you, and I'm very thankful for MJF being able to, defeat Jay White with one leg, by the way. And I don't have to retire, so I can do the show with you still here on the Give It a Shot Network here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And we are powered by Fast Break Coffee. Also catch us on all our social media, High Spot Podcast on our YouTube, High Spot Podcast, and HSP Media. So
You were sweating
Trendsetter,
a little bit there, weren't you, Jeff? You were sweating. Admit it.
well, obviously, dude, because he gets hurt at 0 hour. I'm like, wait a minute. And then they're actually announced right as soon as the show starts that MJF is not going to be able to compete against Jay White. And here I am thinking, wait a minute, now do I have a way to get out of this? Do I have a loophole where I can say, well, he was injured, he really couldn't. But then when Adam Cole was going to take over his spot, then wait a minute, does it mean he had to vacate the title? So many things going on here. And I was thinking to myself, there's no way that Tony Khan is going to advertise this match between MJF and Jay White and then pull a fast one and then have Adam Cole take his place. What is going on here? So I was confused. I was a little bit panicked. I was biting the fingernails. But at the end of the day, I'm with you here again this week, and we're previewing Survivor Series. So at the end of the day, I guess I had a rabbit's foot up my butt, I guess.
That's not the only thing you had up your butt, man. But hey, at the end of the day, a win's a win. You got it through. You survived. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, it is all that matters, man. And again, too, all the Thanksgiving Day food was amazing. And now we are on the holiday season. It's here, so let's talk about Survivor Series, and we will get into that. But let's recap Full Gear though, because just a few things. We're going to put a ribbon on this one because obviously a lot of people are talking about the MJF and Jay White main event and how MJF pulled it off on one leg. We'll get to that in 2 seconds. But let's talk about the match that we actually talked about here and said that it was going to steal the show. It could possibly steal the show. And that was Swerve Strickland and Adam Hangman Page. Listen, if you look at it and you're not worried about the intricacies and whether stuff makes sense, you're going to enjoy this match. And a lot of people call this the greatest Texas death match of all time. It's right up there. But again, when you then look at it, analyze, and did it make sense? No, but you know what? It's wrestling, though. It depends on your the way you kind of take the information, the way you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, entertaining me. Did it make sense? Did the blood drinking kind of throw me off a little bit? It did. But for what it's worth, to me, that was the match of the night.
Yeah, it definitely drew a lot of attention. It had people up on their feet going through a tidal wave of emotions, right? Does it make sense? To your point, probably doesn't. It was really, if you want a brutality, if you want things to be taken to the next level, then you got that with this match. There were certain parts of it I didn't agree with, not particular spots, but certain things that were done in this match that, to me, that's not wrestling. But again, it's interpretive, right, Jeff? It depends on the person's point of view. But for this, man, it's one that everyone remembers now. It's one that, will go into the lore of AEW history as a match that people will still be talking about because a lot of things were involved in this match, not just from a storyline standpoint, but from how far were they going to take it? And we saw how far they took it.
It makes Swerve Strickland this kind of right now, this unbeatable guy, this guy that, wow, he withstood all this abuse and all this assault from Hangman Page and came out victorious. You really can't kill Swerve. For Hangman Page, though, I'm going to take it to this point. He's going to be known now for at least a little bit, or at least till, I don't know when the next evolution of his character happens, but to me, he's going to be the dude that drank Swerve Strickland's blood, right? I mean, that to me is going to kind of linger on there. And a little surprised at the ending, though, because I kind of said that Hangman Page was going to come out victorious. It's going to be 1-1. But for Swerve to get that victory kind of threw things off if they're not going to have another, matchup here. So that ending kind of threw me off that we're not going to get maybe a third one. But at the end of the day, it kind of made Swerve Strickland, didn't it?
Well, listen, I mean, how personally this rivalry was going showed you that they were going to take it to another level. Now, the ultimate outcome, Swerve Strickland looks amazing because of all the things he had to go through. And of course, if we want to debate it, yes, outside interference, it wasn't a clean win. Those are things you want to do to protect both competitors in this, right? There's a legitimate excuse for Hangman Page and why he didn't come out with the victory. They even said it during the broadcast. He's undefeated in a Texas death match, which, you're like, okay, well, there's going to be a payoff here somewhere. And with Swerve Strickland, it's more of, wow, how low the depths can he go to? It wasn't a dominant performance, but he eked out a win with everything that was needed to do this. So in a way, it protects Adam Hangman Page, but also, like you said, one of the images we'll always remember now from this, or even when we talk about this and bring it up, for me, will be what you just mentioned with Swerve Strickland bleeding profusely through the forehead and Adam Hangman Page drinking his blood as it drips down into his mouth. It was just really weird. I'd never seen that before in my life. Probably, hopefully, never want to see it again. But now it shows you another side of Adam Hangman Page where, yes, he was the funny cowboy, the drunk, right? Now it's a sadistic side. Where it goes from here, I have no idea. But for Swerve Strickland, it definitely puts him now in an area where he can now be considered probably, if not already, a main event talent for AEW.
And he's also in the Continental tournament. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, there's a big step for him to go up now if he advances in this Continental Classic, the tournament that started this past Wednesday night on Dynamite. So we'll
Basically,
see.
AEW's version of the G1.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, basically. I don't know how tournaments like that, if the fans can remain interested in those like the G1, because I think the issue is if you have a sport and you're treating it like a sport, like they're trying to with this, because obviously you had before how important were the win loss records? Remember they were doing that for a little bit, and then at the end of the day, a person with 2 wins and like 5 losses was getting these title opportunities. So they threw that out the window. For a month, you have to maintain the consistency and the logic of this, and plus the rules and the way you win the titles kind of a little bit confusing. If you're a fan here, at first you thought now there's a title that they're introducing that, of course, they had hidden. It will probably be unveiled before the finals on the 30th at World's End. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm going to be very interested in paying close attention as to if this tournament is something that people are actually going to latch on and be emotionally invested into it or keep up with, because it's a round robin, not single elimination, and it goes by points. So obviously they just they showed the rules and stuff, but just a little bit hard to get with the rules. And we'll see if the casual fan is going to be interested. We know that they've got that wrestling fan, but we'll see if the casual fan will be interested in a tournament like this here in the States. But a few things that happened at Full Gear, Trendsetter, and the first one, of course, is the big announcement, the big signing by Tony Khan. And hey, kudos to Andrew Zarian of Madman Podcast. You got it right. It was Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is All Elite. He signs with AEW. And was that a big enough name for you, Trendsetter? Did that satisfy your appetite? Will Ospreay being All Elite? Or did you think that maybe another signing like Ronda Rousey, although it was a one-off from what we hear, this whole ROH thing, were you satisfied with the name Will Ospreay? Was that somebody that you were like, whoa, okay, this is somebody that Tony Khan's made up for his kind of botched announcements in the past? Will Ospreay's a guy that I can get behind.
Was I satisfied with it? I mean, yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't I be? We've seen Will Ospreay on AEW television. We've seen him in his rivalry with Kenny Omega, in his rivalry and All In London, Wembley Stadium with Chris Jericho. So it's not like we don't know aren't familiar with Will Ospreay. in terms of a signing, it's a smart signing, especially if they're going to be promoting more international events for AEW. One being All In, they love their fans overseas for AEW. Those are, as like you like to call, the die hardcore fans, the old fans over there in Europe. So it makes sense. But in terms of it being built up as this global phenomenal star, listen, Will Ospreay for you and I, Jeff, and maybe for the people watching, the members of the crew, we know who Will Ospreay is. We've seen what he's done in New Japan. We've seen what he's done all over the world, especially on AEW television. But for an audience, a general audience that is watching AEW, which I'm sure a good majority of the demographic is the die-hardcore wrestling fan, but for the general audiences that are watching on television and watching on broadcast television, it's like, who is this guy? So it creates intrigue, but when you're billing him to be a mega star, I'm sorry, it just doesn't live up to that. Am I happy with the signing? Yes, it's a great signing. Kudos. It makes the roster better, of course, with Will Ospreay, how that works. And for Will Ospreay, it's the best decision he could make right now, because there were talks about WWE, but then he was on he was speaking to our good friend Chris Van Vliet on his show Insight, saying that it was something he'd be interested in after his New Japan contract would expire, but still the work schedule, the work rate there, it's a different type of animal, machine when you go to WWE. With AEW, he's comfortable with the system they run, he's comfortable with the people there, and it just works for him. So at this stage in his career, if people want to talk about, oh, well, he could still possibly go, who knows? But again, smart business plan, business decision for AEW, and business for Will Ospreay. So it all makes sense. It just wasn't a huge surprise to me that was going to be him.
All right, so it's a multi-year deal in the seven-figure range. It starts leaking out the numbers. Eventually, we'll find out the concrete details. But listen, if you guys thought
with
he
more
was
accurate numbers than Wembley Stadium, though,
exactly, if you thought he was going to go to WWE, then I don't know what to tell you guys. Obviously, it makes sense to get them involved. Obviously, it makes sense to talk positive about them. Obviously, it's negotiation time. He was leaving in February. I'm a little bit still surprised that it wasn't more close to next year that we found out, but it's pretty obvious where this was going to go. It's not like you needed to wait out February, and it works because you can still do New Japan. He can still live in the UK, which is fine with him, and he's going to get a Wembley Stadium show at All In. If that satisfies you, if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you want, then obviously there's really nothing else to talk about here. The work schedule is better. He'll work independence. He'll get to be in that TNA ring eventually next year if he gets to work. A date is open for that. So he gets what he wants. He gets paid. And I'm always going to say this, dude. What Triple H stated a long time ago, it takes a certain kind of person to want to do that WWE schedule, that grind. So say what you guys want. I'm probably going to beat up by this, but, WWE is just a different animal. It's a different cat. It's the big league. So if you want to do, you got to do what's best for you. And Will Ospreay did what's best for him. Congratulations to him. He's getting paid, and we're seeing one of the best talents now. We're going to see him more here in the States. So we can't lose. So good for Will Ospreay. Mm-hmm. Now we go to MJF and Jay White. Listen, it would have been really crazy if this whole Adam Cole injury was a work, right? It would have been probably one of the best injury works of all time. So Adam Cole is limping and hobbling down the ring. And then MJF comes out, the hero. Really, really. Listen, here's another thing, too, where I'm getting to the point. There is no way when you're close to wrapping up your contract and you're supposed to be a free agent in January of 2024, and you're being not only oversaturated, in my opinion, but you're on every single segment and you're being pushed the way you are by Tony Khan, there is no way that would happen. Or if you're a smart businessman, that you would not have some sort of maybe a handshake agreement, a verbal agreement by MJF that he's resigning. And that's what a lot of people are speculating. That's what WWE thinks. They think that MJF has quietly resigned for another 3 years. So all this 2024 talk, it looks, Trendsetter, like it's 2027 now, as it looks like MJF is quietly signed. And would you be surprised at all if he did?
No, really. I mean, because how can I say this? Everyone always wants to think they know the inside work in terms of, is it a work? Is it not a work? Does it make sense? Can he really do that? I mean, I'll even go back just real quick. Chicago, Illinois, CM Punk walking out of the WWE as the WWE champion. Oh, of course he's going to lose the title. He's leaving the company. He's not coming back. They're just building this up to give us some idea that it could possibly happen, and it did happen. Was this something where like he was not under contract and he walked out with the WG? No, he was still under contract, and they probably came to an extension at some point during that time for it to work itself the way it did. And we saw what happened. He was off TV for a while, came back. In the scenario of MJF, to me, there was never any doubt he was probably going to resign with AEW. But I guess for me, the little disappointment was when you heard the rumors go out that, the WWE side had never really been in contact with the MJF side in terms of talking about even the possibility. So that's a little disappointing. I mean, hey, it hasn't hurt MJF because even just throwing it out there, it definitely is something that AEW was aware of. Tony Khan was
Well,
aware of.
he has to
They run
engage.
the risk.
He has to engage. It's not like WWE wouldn't have talked to him. It's that he, as the impending free agent, had to reach out to him, you know? So I don't think it's surprising that WWE didn't reach out. I don't think they had the chance to reach out.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm talking about is a disappointing thing. They didn't have the chance to reach out to see what would happen here because we had debated. I'm sure other people have been talking about could MJF and his personality, his character survive in WWE? Would he be treated as a main star as he's treated in AEW? Ultimately, long story short, I think he would have found some level of success there because I think he's just that talented as a performer that he could work within any mold. Similar that if you're in the PG era, all no rules whatsoever, you can say whatever you want, get that cheap heat, fine, great. But again, it takes a certain amount of talent to be able to adapt themselves and still stay true to who they are. And that's what MJF has done here. So it disappointing note, but again, as we spoke about Will Ospreay, it makes sense here for MJF. The company's right behind him. They want him to be the face of AEW. And there's no doubt in my mind that come 2024, there will be a long, lengthy contract, and MJF will be in AEW for a very long time.
Yeah, you said very long time. Here's where I'll say, yeah, at least 3 years, right? Because everyone thinks it's 2027 now, which looks like these guys signed 3 years extensions. It looks like, that's what Osprey's deal is. So, well, Osprey could be 33 and then he could decide that he wants to be in the WWE. He could be 34, 35, whatever.
Yeah, but the difference is Will Ospreay is in the future of AEW. He's in the face of AEW. Like they're
Here's
trying
the
to
thing, though. He's still, so MJF is like 26, 27. So when he's done with this contract, he still has the brink struck, unless there's an injury or anything like that. I don't want to, speak that into existence. But here's a guy who's going to bank on when he's 30. So I'm pretty sure there's something where like there's going to be interest 3 years down the road. But right now he's just having all the success, and why would you kind of like mess that up now? So I think there in the future there will be talks with MJF and WWE. But right now, honestly, he's running that ship. He's the face of that. Why not stick around a little bit longer? And he's still young.
The reason why, Jeff, is because it's such a fragile state. I mean, we talk about sports athletes and their window being really small. In pro wrestling, anything can happen. If you sign an extension, even for 3 years, right? Like you just said, I say he's going to be part of AEW for a very long time. Even a 3-year contract, yeah, then he could talk to WWE after 3 years. A lot could happen in 3 years where maybe you're not the hottest commodity out there. Sometimes you have to strike it while you're hot because you never know in 3 years will you still be that way. As a performer, of course you're always going to feel that in 3 years you're just going to be even as better and as hot as you once were. But anything could happen, injuries, just anything could happen where it just deters that from happening. Perfect example, Brian Pillman was going to be one of the hottest free agents back in the day, and then he got hurt, tore up his ankle, and was never the same again. I'm not saying that's happening here, but again, you never know. That's unpredictability is in that scenario. MJF's comfortable. He's there. They basically give him free range. Why wouldn't you take that as opposed to WWE where you have to follow and go through so many channels to get things approved? Not that, again, he wouldn't be able to do that, but it doesn't make sense for him to stay in AEW because it's basically his home. He can do whatever he feels creatively he wants to do and be satisfied when doing that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like you said too. Also have to consider injuries as a factor as well. So that's the deal with MJF, man. And I've always kind of had this belief that he was going to stay, and this whole thing was not a real thing. As much as people would love to see this, and a lot of people were kind of counting on 2024, at least the early part of 2024, being this huge free agency period. But now you've got two of the very best seeming as if they're staying and joining AEW. So, like I said, it takes a special cat to make it WWE and want to go there. And hey, maybe they miss out on Osprey and MJF, but guys like Okada perhaps could be on the horizon for WWE. But we'll talk about that when it happens. But just a little information, a little FYI. Supposedly Okada would listen, and his contract expires in February. So that's another name. If you're interested in who's an available free agent out there, that's a guy that maybe in a few weeks or in a few months down the road would be very interesting to wonder what his gauge would be in WWE. All right, Trendsetter, Survivor Series is Saturday. Oh man, so excited! Just because I guess that feeling is still out there. We don't know what's going to happen. Well, what we do know though that's going to happen is that the fifth member of Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso, we know who it is. Now, a lot of people are kind of upset that the cat's been out of the bag, but WWE has a special reason why. They kind of want you to think it was going to be CM Punk. But instead, we kind of got the clues and obviously put two and two together after Monday Night Raw that it was going to be the Apex Predator Randy Orton. The Viper, Randy Orton, is back in WWE, and he will be the fifth member at War Games. Are you excited? Do you think that WWE did the right thing by kind of spoiling it for us before, knowing that fans are still holding out hope that some way or some form, whether he's going to be selling hot dogs in the stands or whether he's going to be somewhere, somehow we're going to see CM Punk at Allstate Arena on Saturday?
How do you answer that question, Jeff? How do you really answer that question
Well,
without
journalist that you
deciding?
are, obviously you're going to be eloquent, and I expect a very professional response.
Well, thank you. I was pausing for dramatic effect, and again, I didn't need you to reestablish that for me, but I appreciate it regardless, Jeff. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. So when you look at Randy Orton, does it make sense, like you said, to announce his return and not make it be a surprise? Listen, I've always been more of a traditionalist where I'm like, well, no, you need to save that. You look at, for example, Cody, right? Nobody knew he was coming back. Imagine if they had announced it earlier that Cody Rhodes was coming back, then maybe it would have, lost some momentum. Maybe it wouldn't have been as exciting, authentic moment as it was when he came back because there were a lot of rumors of who's going to face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. For Randy Orton, I think it does make sense, though, because to your point about will we see CM Punk, I think that's the main question going into Survivor Series. As much as, we're excited for Randy Orton's return, the men's war games, women's war games, the titles on the line, Intercontinental title, and all these things we're going to talk about right now here and a little bit later. By promoting Randy Orton, you're creating that initial excitement to see his return because it's been so long since we've seen him. It also masks the fact that it kind of numbs the feeling that if we don't see CM Punk, you'll be okay with it because we're getting the return of someone, Randy Orton. So, yeah, I think from a business standpoint, it would make sense because now it builds anticipation as opposed to if you didn't announce it and you were expecting it to be him and then Randy Orton came back and it wasn't CM Punk, the crowd might turn on you. At least that's my feeling. The crowd might turn on you and start booing you and chanting CM Punk, and it kind of ruins that return moment for Randy Orton, in my opinion. So I think from a business standpoint, it made sense. It might cause more people to tune in now because they're going to be like, wow, Randy Orton's coming back. I got to see this now, and kind of forget the whole CM Punk thing. I still think there might be something there. I have not been 100% confident it's going to be him, CM Punk returning, because if you're going to bring back somebody of the caliber of Randy Orton, why would you also bring another person too? You always kind of want to save that. Maybe it could be a Raw. Maybe it could be somewhere down the road. Of course, Chicago, Illinois, his hometown, would make sense, right? Maybe an Easter egg. We know in this new regime that we're dealing with Triple H, Jeff, it's not so clear cut now. So sometimes it's not what you see or the right time, the right moment, as we thought for Cody at WrestleMania. He was going to win. He was going to finish the story. It continues on. There'll always be another way of bringing somebody back, supposedly, if it is CM Punk, at some of the future time, regardless of how perfect the moment seems.
All right, so I like the term that you used here, Easter egg. And if you go about how I wanted to do this so long, if you want to talk about Easter eggs, we do mention Easter eggs and how Triple H could have a major one in store at Survivor Series. But you got to go back to the archives in our last episode and check on that one. So I always want to say go back to the archives. Yeah, and then my question is to you also. It's something I thought about too. This is a guy in Randy Orton. I'm glad he's back. he was kind of advised by doctors to, if he could, retire. But they're talking about him wanting to wrestle to at least 50 or close to that. To bring him back into a War Games match, coming off it being his first match from injury, missing like so much time. I know they did like this timeline of all the stuff that happened since Randy Orton the last time we saw him in the ring. It's a long time, dude. And for him to come back at War Games in that match makes me think of a few things. Are you going to get Randy Orton off the bat? Or are they going to squeeze this sucker to the very last drop where they're like, oh, he's going to be here. He's supposed to be here. He's going to be here. And he pulls a Kevin Owens and he comes out at right at the very end and they kind of save him. So you get this huge freaking pop. You get this build that, oh, he comes out. Or he's going to come out with the team itself and last the whole War Games match. That's going to be interesting too. I can't wait to see what happens there. What would you do? What do you think is the right move to do? And do you think you could see an aspect where they pull a Kevin Owens at TakeOver, where they have a Randy Orton come out last?
Yeah, to answer your question, if I was doing this and setting it up, I would milk it for everything it's worth. I really would.
Oh,
Because
I'm
it was never officially, listen, I go back to Raw and see Cody say, I'm bringing back somebody I have a legacy with, a good friend, and all these,
hints and innuendos.
I was gonna say innuendos, yeah, of letting you think you know who they're talking about, although it was never officially said. So only when you physically see it will you believe that it's Randy Orton, right? So I think WWE, if I was doing it, would milk it for all it's worth. Like where's the guy? Where's the person you promised? Oh, he's not here yet. He's not here yet. He's making his way to the building. Blah blah blah. The match starts. It's a handicap match because obviously Cody's team is outnumbered by Drew McIntyre and the Judgment Day, and then you hear that too. Why you bring him back in this type of scenario, Jeff? I'll answer that question as well. You bring him back in this type of scenario because one, if he's only there for a short period of time, that crowd's going to go crazy. Less is more, right? As they say in show business. Secondly, too, he's not going to be 100%. To expect him to come back after such a long, lengthy time off is not smart if you want him to have a regular one-on-one match or to start a rivalry with somebody and all of a sudden, oh, wow, we're going to get a one-on-one match. This is how you slowly build him here because he doesn't have to do everything, let alone I don't think he's going to be there till the very end. But even if he showed up with the team and the crowd goes crazy, he doesn't have to be there. He doesn't have to do all the work to get there. At this rate right now, Randy Orton doesn't have to do a lot of work to get a lot of things over in terms of move sets and enthusiasm from the crowd. So to me, it's a perfect timing because that's the best way you protect somebody coming back from a lengthy time off of injury is this way. And now back to his back injury real quick and then coming back. Listen, I'm the first person, I'm sure you are, Jeff, and I hate to speak for you sometimes, but I will from this time. We're the last people to say when somebody should hang them up, and maybe it's not the best thing for him to do. Listen, he wouldn't be coming back if WWE didn't clear him. That's one thing, right? Because they wouldn't want to run the risk of something bad happening to him in the ring, and then all of a sudden, wow, it's a terrible thing for a business look, right? Secondly, too, we've seen so many individuals. Shawn Michaels just pops in my head, has a broken back, still did. It wasn't fused. I mean, I think they did some fusion on it. Depends on where in the back it is. And again, I'm not a medical doctor, so it might be
That's
different.
why I saved my ass and
Orton.
get a procedure done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, procedure done there. But again, we've seen people work with backs. Ric Flair has a broken back and still worked with it. So it just depends on the individual, how they're able to tolerate, how they're able to work around it. But again, I'm sure from a business standpoint, WWE wouldn't allow him to come back if he didn't think he was cleared to do it physically. And secondly, I don't think Randy Orton, in terms of how high he holds the status of being a performer, would come back if he didn't think he could do it.
So here's another thing too that also made me think that we're going to see Randy Orton towards the end. And that is because if you're promised one thing and you're anticipating one thing, your mind is going to be directed towards that one thing. So if you're waiting till the very end to get Randy Orton out there, wouldn't it make sense that that's also going to make you forget a little bit about CM Punk? Because if you're holding out that CM Punk showing up at the very end, right? You're still waiting for Randy Orton. So if you're waiting for Randy Orton, and then by the time he gets out there, and there may be like 2 minutes, 3 minutes for his entrance, and you hear that pop, and the crowd is standing for 5, and then he's only wrestling for 2 minutes. by the time you think about CM Punk again, the match is over. You're going home. So I
Yeah.
think that's another thing too that's also going to do a great job by WWE, and their thinking is that, hey, the longer we prolong this, the more they're wanting Randy Orton, and the less you're thinking about CM Punk.
I completely agree. But you know why? Because they got you. If they do that, if they make you sit and wait to the very end of the premium live event for 2 minutes of Randy Orton, then they got you because you saw the rest of the show, and that's a win for WWE. So why wouldn't you?
A lot. See, here's the thing though, WWE doesn't need CM Punk, but man, it would just be icing on the cake, and so it would just it's like an unnecessary necessary. I guess what I'm trying to say, right? So I think that's what CM Punk would be right now to them and mean to them. So I also let you know too, as well, is that you not only can you watch us here on YouTube on the Give Us a Shot Network, but you can also listen to us and subscribe on iTunes and all social media platforms. Make sure you also listen to us. So if you're at the gym and you need to catch up on an episode, or if it's the gym and you can't wait for the upcoming PLE or pay-per-view by AEW or WWE, or hey, listen, even TNA, Ring of Honor to an extent, hey, make sure you listen and subscribe to the HSP podcast on all major podcast platforms. That's where we are. If you guys don't know, now you know. All right, so we're going to go to Survivor Series, and I'm going to think like a booker when I'm running down this card for you. So if I'm thinking there's two War Game matches, men and women, what do you think is going to open it up? The women, of course. So I'm going to go and take a big gamble here and say that we open up with the women's War Games match. And when we get to that matchup, Trendsetter, it's a 4-on-4. It's not 5-on-5 like the men. And we've got, of course, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Shotzi. And the other side, you got Damage Control, Kairi Sane, Asuka, Io Sky, and, of course, Bayley. So before we get to anything where we're going to break this down for you, let's just give you the odds here. Damage Control is minus 180 for you guys that are going to bet on wrestling to pull this off. Obviously, there's more cohesion here, but also too there's that risk that, hey, Bayley messes up and in 2 seconds that these girls are going to turn on Bayley, which we all think is going to happen, but they're just the more cohesive unit. Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair don't like each other. Bianca Belair just coming off a long layoff. And Shotzi, obviously, well, she's the wild card here because this is really her first time in a long time in a big match like this, in a big time setting. So you think that Damage Control can get the job done. But what I like about this matchup, and Chancellor, you tell me real quick, and why you give me a prediction as well, is I think Damage Control is going to not come out victorious. So I'm going to give the victory here to the team of Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Shotzi, and Bianca, because I think it's the beginning of the story where they're gonna boot Bayley out, and I think this is the start of it. What do you think? I have the Charlotte and Becky and Bianca and Shotzi winning this matchup.
I don't share your enthusiasm for that. You know why? Because I really feel that they're trying to treat, at least from the women's division, they're trying to treat this whole Damage Control scenario and the inner workings of how it seems like Bayley is starting to kind of have herself pushed out of power in Damage Control because of all of you know, Sky's friends now joining. Obviously, Dakota Kai's injured, so she's not really a part of Damage Control to a sense. She's part of the group, but she's not an active member of it. So it really seems like Bayley's now being set as the outcast, right? So I think they're trying to try not to make comparisons as much, but when you look at it from the investment of how much time they've put into Damage Control and their impact in the women's division, of their dominance, of Bayley being champion for as long as she has, and now Io has that reign as the champion. I think honestly they're going to focus more on that, and I think Damage Control is going to win this one. Just because you wouldn't expect a team that's made together of all great athletes to be a good team. You just talked about Charlotte and Becky not liking each other.
Bianca's coming off.
Yeah, Bianca coming off a huge layoff. I had a freeze for a moment there, but those are factors that are real. And you look at Damage Control; they seem to be, even with the addition of Asuka, a well-oiled machine. And I think they love telling stories. I think they still want to make this whole fallout of Bayley, which it looks like that's where we're going to get eventually down the road. To have us have the anticipation of like when it's going to happen. So I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to get the victory, but we're going to start seeing other layers show that Bayley's not happy. EO looks like she's taking over control, and that's going to start imploding in itself, and that's what we're going to get. So I see Damage Control coming out with the victory here at Survivor Series.
What I like about this is that I love the way that WWE kind of frames the storyline, because just like they did with the Bloodline, you're wondering when they were going to pull the trigger. When was this going to stop? When were you going to see the end? When was it going to fracture? I think WWE does a good job with that. I think they pull you, string you along emotionally, and then they get to that point where like, oh, okay. So I think I'm excited to see what happens. When exactly is the time that they turn on Bayley? Because it's going to happen. It's gonna happen. So it's just when, and that's the good thing that WWE does. So I'm excited to see where this Damage Control storyline goes. And hey, listen, you just can't win a match off of big names, right? So that's where the disadvantages goes to Bianca and Charlotte, because they're big names, right? They're part of the Four Horsewomen. But sometimes big names just don't get along as a team that normally works together does. So that's going to be interesting, and that's
See it in
why
sports all the time, though, Jeff. Right? You put all these superstars together doesn't necessarily mean they're going to work well together.
the line is so close at minus 180 for Damage Control. So if you're betting on that one, just be careful there, because it's just very, very close. As both war game matches are war game matches. So that's something you have to also keep an eye on if you're actually gonna bet on this wrestling thing. All right, so the next match I think is going to be Carlito and Santos Escobar. Again, too, another well done kind of storyline where you could tell that eventually, Santos Escobar was doing a lot for Ray, and he was going to have enough. And he had enough. And now puts Ray out of commission. And Ray get a speedy recovery because he had knee surgery. Hopefully he's back in a few weeks' time. And we get Santos Escobar and Carlito, who's sticking up for Ray. Listen, I think that Carlito, while he is in great shape, obviously here would have the more physical advantage over Santos. I think here we are now with Santos now on the progression on the way up. So I'm going to go Santos Escobar getting the victory over Carlito. And Santos again at minus 1,000 and Carlito plus 500. So obviously Santos is favored in this matchup. And I would say so because it just looks like Santos is on the way up.
They are definitely making it out that they want, or at least they see something in Santos to bring him up to that level now. He had an opportunity, though, Jeff. He had an opportunity to do a promo, cut a scathing one on Rey Mysterio, and I don't think he nailed it, though. And that's just my honest opinion. I don't think he nailed it. I think it really didn't feel. I mean, when he was talking in Spanish, it felt more real than it was when he was trying to do it in English, where he's like, "I hope you get an infection. I hope that they cough the leg and amputate it." Like, I almost chuckled laughing. But again, it's just the delivery of it as well. Sometimes you can go a little bit overboard and be like, "Hey, I need to go really personal and get really deep to get that feeling from the audience, or to get that hate and heat from the audience." So I don't think it was as successful of a home run hit as people might think it was. I don't know if you think that way.
I
I
thought it
don't
was
think that way.
I thought it was
I
great.
didn't think it was very promo at all. When you go back and just he was, and it didn't seem like he was really confident what he was saying. So anyway, regardless of that, though, there's no question of the talent he is. And with this now, it goes back just real quick when we talk about Carlito. It's like it was exciting to see Carlito come back and join the LWO, and now he's going to fight Santos, and it looks like Santos is starting to work his way up now, because that's where it looks like he's going to position himself, because eventually when Rey Mysterio does come back, hopefully sooner than later, that's a match right there. Who knows? Maybe it's a WrestleMania match. Who knows? Where does Carlito go now? Is he just a guy to kind of help set up the other guy? I mean, that's where I'm feeling the sense of I feel bad for Carlito. But in this match, that's the way they position Santos. So I think Santos, this will be his first win in terms of establishing himself as one of those hated heels. And what better opportunity? I mean, he did a great job in NXT. This is a different level now in terms of more people seeing you. It's not more of the diehard core seeing you on NXT. It's more of a general audience, and now how they're going to take to him. Can he win over that hate from the audience to the point where he's at that level of a major star? Eventually, the payoff is Rey Mysterio, but the first step is Carlito. So I see Santos coming victorious in this one.
Now, here's another match too, where I don't know how you feel about it, and hopefully we don't conflict here, because if not, then I don't think we're going to disagree here, but who knows here. I didn't think it was possible for me to like a babyface Miz. He's one of those guys. It's just, hey man, he's just a heel, man. I just dislike this dude. But when you have two guys and Gunther, who's gotten so much better as far as promos, who kind of saved that promo from kind of going and veering off because the crowd seemed to kind of like want to take it in one direction, and Gunther was able to bring it back and was able to take a breath and just be like, all right, we're going in this direction, we're going back at it. And he did a great job. And obviously, The Miz is somebody that when you pull back the layers of him being pompous and an ass and cocky and having the hot wife, you totally outkicked his coverage, right? This is an underdog who always wanted to be a WWE superstar. And when they show the old real world skits and as tough to take as he was in that house, the dude had a dream, stuck to it, and now is not even potentially is a first ballot WWE Hall of Famer. Could break. Listen. You know more Jericho than I did. How many titles did Jericho win? IC titles 10 or 9. He could either tie it or break that record. So I'm not sure. So this is a guy that you got to respect a little bit and throw him his flowers. And I've always been a guy that says you got to throw him his flowers because this is a guy they need to appreciate. Because this guy, hey, we want you to not win a matchup in all of 20 something in all of in a year span. He'll do it. He'll put this guy over. He'll do whatever it takes for the business and for the company. A company guy. Tons of respect for him. But again, in saying all that, as much as I like this babyface run so far for The Miz, and he just delivers with the promos, and I like the back and forth, I like that he's getting offense. I don't see The Miz beating Gunther. I don't think he's the guy. And obviously, the Vegas sports line says that he's not the guy either because Gunther is just a huge favorite in this one. As much as I want to convince myself, there's no way The Miz is coming out victorious.
I think he said it right then and there. I don't think he's coming victorious. I can go on for
Do you have respect for The Miz? Like, did you think that
talking about? Yeah, what are you gonna say?
Did you think that The Miz could pull off this babyface turn? Because I didn't, man. I thought he was a heel through and through.
There's never a doubt in my mind. Can he pull up the the babyface turn? There's no doubt in my mind he could do it. He's that talented where he could make you like him. He can make you hate you. I think he's a better heel than he is a babyface, to be honest with you. But ultimately, yeah, I think Miz could pull it off, and he has been pulling it off without a problem. It's just more of the fact that, yes, I have respect for the Miz, Mike Mizanin. How could you not have respect for this man in terms of what he's done, what he's had to overcome, and what he continues to overcome? Because even his own peers will still sometimes question, well, he wasn't a guy, he didn't pay his dues. Well, people will say that. I kind of just roll my eyes now because I'm like, what more dues can you want? Yes, he didn't start off the way most people did in the business where they had to work themselves to 20, 18 years until they finally got to WWE. Okay, he made it through the back door, but he still earned his spot on television. He still earned his opportunities because he worked really hard for them and is a great representation of the company. So he is a Hall of Famer, but I don't see with all those things we're just talking about right now and that you had mentioned as well, I just don't see that working in the sense that it's going to be enough to dethrone a guy like Gunther and the title ring he has now with the Intercontinental Championship. Same thing. Like we talk about Gunther and guys like Roman Reigns, for example, it becomes to the point where is the story or the buildup of the character of the opposition good enough or believable enough to say, okay, yeah, even though because everyone have their opinion, like, I know this guy, he's not good enough to beat him, or come on, he beat Brock Lesnar, or he beat this guy. How can you say that this dude is the guy to do it? There has to be enough momentum from the fan base, at least for me, to justify that you could do that or make that move. Sami Zayn was an example. Cody Rhodes was an example. Brock Lesnar when he was facing Roman Reigns. For Gunther, I'm sure people thought Sheamus and Drew McIntyre at that time WrestleMania were going to be one of the two to dethrone Gunther because in a way he was going to lose in a triple threat match. And that was it. He's going to move on to something else. There has to be a fan reaction, not in terms of momentum, but can the fans get behind this person? Because whoever defeats a guy like Gunther, even if he gets defeated, or a guy like Roman Reigns, right? That person who does it, I feel, has to be worth it. That you're going to build on that person after a huge victory like that. I would hate to compare it to the Undertaker streak too, but again, if Undertaker streak, and you can debate whether or not guys whether they should have broken it or they shouldn't have. I personally didn't want them to break it, but again, who else is going to be? And when you say Brock Lesnar, then you're like, well, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. Brock Lesnar would be the only guy to do it in this scenario. I don't think Miz is the guy to do it to dethrone Gunther for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, like I said, the Vegas lines have Gunther as a big favorite here. You know, it's like I said, minus 5,000. So if you know, you'd kind of avoid that if you're going to bet on that one, though. But I mean, could the impossible happen? Maybe, but I just don't think it's going to happen at Survivor Series. Another championship is on the line. Rhea Ripley, mommy, will defend her Women's World Championship against Zoe Stark. Again, here's another thing where Zoe Stark's, after the whole Trish Stratus thing, I don't know what happened, whether it was injury or whether it's just, you know, the booking. That's probably the negative of when you have all these people on a roster here. Sometimes people get lost in the fold. Maybe Zoe got lost in the fold, but that momentum to come back, now she's aligned with Shayna Baszler, all that stuff. It just to me just does not um qualify or make me believe that she can beat Rhea Ripley. And plain and simple, I think Rhea Ripley is gonna come out victorious and regain and retain the Women's World Championship right here. And like I said, Vegas says it at minus 3,000. She is the betting favorite to win. Trendsetter, can you fight me on this at all?
No, I mean I could probably find a reason of why Zoe could potentially come out as a winner. The only thing I could ever say about it is that when things tend to become as predictable as we're kind of staying in now. We said the same thing with Santos scenario here with the Intercontinental title, and now with the Women's World title and what's going to happen with Rhea Ripley and Zoe Starks. I don't see it. They had an opportunity when Zoe slapped Trish, betrayed her, was like, I'm done with you, never did anything with it. It's kind of hard to pick up momentum again right from there and take Zoe, who, hey, she is very talented in the ring. What she does in the ring is second to none in terms of can she hang with somebody like Rhea Ripley? Of course she can. And it would be a great match, right? I can't wait to see it. It's going to be, I'm actually looking forward to it, believe it or not. But yeah, I don't see that happening right now. You've done all this to build Rhea Ripley. How can somebody like Zoe, who has had no momentum going into this, no story, in my opinion, going into that, it's kind of hard to think that, hey, they're going to pull the wool over our eyes and say, hey, we got you. You thought it was going to be a clear cut path for Rhea. She lost the title. I don't think how you could do it to Rhea right now because she's such another hot commodity as well. How could you do that to her? I don't see it.
I like that word you said, predictable. Is this card a little too predictable? I kind of will get back on that one after we review the last match, and that's the men's War Games match between Drew McIntyre and the Judgment Day. And remember, he's aligned himself with the Judgment Day. I think Drew delivered one hell of a promo, probably his second best promo, probably the lead up to Crown Jewel. He did that video package where he's at the PC and he's talking about the pandemic and his lost opportunities and blaming the bloodline and giving you a great reason to the fans of why he's doing what he's doing. God, man, he's a cool badass, right? And so now he's involved, and they've got Jey Uso, who's making a lot of enemies, who's made a lot of enemies as a member of the bloodline. You got Cody Rhodes, who brought him into Raw. Seth freaking Rollins, the champion. And then you've got Sami Zayn there. Ah, man, this one maybe not so much, but Randy Orton's coming back. You can imagine this victory celebration, or maybe not, or maybe Randy Orton's got an RKO for one of those guys, one of those allies in there, and that'll be interesting too. So I'm going to pick Randy Orton's team because hey, Randy Orton, that's the guy. But I think what's going to be more interesting is who's he going to RKO? Is it going to be Jey Uso? Is it going to be Cody Rhodes? As much as I think Jey Uso's got to watch his back, I think Cody Rhodes is in for it. I think that that is going to be a great feud. Hopefully, is what we get at Survivor Series.
I think who's going to RKO is Rhea Bloody Ripley. That would be a huge pop if he does
Oh,
it. Rhea loves to get herself involved in these things,
yeah.
and if we know the Viper anything about him, he holds everyone equal. Everyone's full
That's
go in terms of yeah, exactly. So yeah, I hate the fact that the only thing we didn't agree on was the women's War Games match. But for this one, I would have to agree too. I think by building up this return for supposedly Randy Orton, it's kind of written, or I feel it's written to a certain extent that, man, how could you not have that crowd pop where Randy Orton comes back, they're victorious, And then you get a backstab or a betrayal, an RKO on somebody like a Jey Uso or maybe Cody. Maybe they weren't as close as Cody likes to think they are. And let's be honest, as much as I love Cody Rhodes, Jeff, he's always very easily manipulated because he just likes to believe in the good in people sometimes. And Cody, hate to break it to you, but not everyone is nice. Even if they're nice to you, doesn't mean they're a nice person. And Randy Orton, the Viper, you never want to turn your back on a Viper because they're gonna bite. And that's always been the thing with Randy. That, even with I hate to go back here in terms of what he was doing with Matt Riddle, but we're waiting like when's it gonna happen? When's the turn gonna be? And we never saw that obviously because he had to go away with a back injury, but in that scenario too. Like you never know with Randy Orton. So that's the always intriguing thing about his character and what they do. They can always go the other way. They can always pull a last minute, be like, you know what, audible here, and we're doing this. But I think what's going to happen is at the end of the night, Survivor Series War Games, you're going to have Cody's team victorious because it doesn't hurt, in my opinion, the Judgment Day if they lose this match. And ultimately, you kind of want to have that, final, yes, they got it. They were able to win against all odds because the Judgment Days kind of had the best of them throughout the course of building up to this. So I see Cody, Sammy, Seth, Jay, and Randy Orton coming out victorious.
So if Randy doesn't RKO anybody, and for some reason there's just not enough cohesion between these guys, because at the end of the day, Cody doesn't like Seth, doesn't like Cody. Jay is not really somebody that a lot of people kind of like. He's done his lot of damage with the bloodline, a lot of scars, a lot of enemies. Say you don't have that. Say, would it be a right time? Would it be an opportunity anywhere in this one where Damian Priest cashes in that Money in the Bank at Survivor Series? Could you see something in that way happen where Damian Priest can pull out that Money in the Bank at Mr. Senior Money in the Bank and cash in on Seth Rollins at Survivor Series? Any chance that could happen? I don't see it. I don't see how it could here if what we think is going to happen, where either Randy Orton is going to RKO Cody or Jay, or whether you're going to have that babyface team celebrate to close out the show. I don't see how Damian can, but I got to ask you though, can you see a scenario where Priest can cash in that Money in the Bank? I don't see it.
Can it happen? Yeah, of course. There are millions of scenarios you can create on the fly as of just thinking off the top of my head of how it could happen, right? Do I see it? No, I really don't unfortunately see it happening just because, like I said, I think the huge buildup is the whole Randy Orton return. I've actually seen him there and how they're going to present him. We talked about it before already. And second to that, or maybe not even second, maybe the first thing really is CM Punk and the second is Randy Orton. I think if you were to do that and try to have Damian Priest somehow try to cash it in, it loses a little bit of its. I mean, would it be something nobody was expecting? Yeah, of course, it definitely would. But I don't think it'd be something that the crowd would really even get behind or even acknowledge because they're all focused on, of course, the announcement of Randy Orton's return and seeing him after such a long period of time, and the possibility of has the WWE been working everyone? Have they actually signed CM Punk? Is CM Punk agreed? Has he signed a one-day contract? I tell you this, though. There's no doubt in my mind that if WWE were to successfully bring CM Punk in, I have no idea how you're going to secretly sneak him in to Chicago, Illinois, and not have somebody recognize him or somebody try to leak this out. That would be the surprising thing around Survivor Series, as either the build-up leading up to the event itself, which are only, it's almost here now, but man, how are you going to keep that from everybody? Because Cody, he was hitting from everybody. He was kept on a bus. Nobody really knew. Only a few people did. You would really have to keep this under wraps in order to keep everyone surprised. So that'd be intriguing to me, the process behind it.
All right, so end of the day here. Now we're at 0 hour now, as we're very close to Survivor Series, and of course we'll have a post show for you on IG Live. Definitely, 100%, we will be with you on IG Live. So make sure you catch us there.
Yeah, wait, you know why? Because it's not going to be 1 a.m. when we do the IG.
Oh
Live.
my God,
That's
Sundays. Well, I mean, it was Saturday, but man, that's the only negative AW Full Gear, man. Just so long. All right, but that's for another topic. We're 0 hour, no pun intended. CM Punk, yes or no, shows up at Survivor Series?
No, he doesn't show up.
And I'm going to say no. But will that Easter egg, though, show up? I say
We're
yes.
agreeing way too much here. This is weird for me. I got to tell you, I'm a little uncomfortable there.
Well, like I said, we still
I
have.
would have thought you would have said yes, though, because you've been so enthusiastic about the possibility and really talking and trying to convince me that it could happen. I'm surprised you said no.
All right, and that'll put a ribbon on your Survivor Series preview here on HSP Podcast on the Give It a Shot Network, powered by Fast Break Coffee. Make sure, guys, you follow us this weekend immediately after Survivor Series, after the press conference. We will be on IG Live on the HSP Podcast. So make sure we'll talk about what happened. Hey, it might be a good night, might be a great night, depending on what happens there at Survivor Series. But still, obviously, we think there's going to be so much to talk about, but we'll be there on IG Live for you guys. And make sure you follow the show. You follow us on social media at High Spot Podcast, on everything, man. I'm talking about on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads. We are there for you guys. We want you to be part of the crew, and it's the best time to hop on, folks. It's WrestleMania season. It's getting really close, just like the holidays are approaching. So is WrestleMania. Before you know it, it'll be there. So, guys, make sure you stick with us, HSP. Trendsetter, man, looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to going on IG Live with you this weekend. And like I said, man, another great show. And Give Us a Shot Network. Really appreciate you guys for having us on here as well. And get that Fast Break coffee, too, because there's going to be some nights we're going to have some of that Fast Break for covering all this wrestling, dude.
Tell you what, I could have used it last Saturday for Full Gear. Not going to need it for Survivor Series. Hey, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to this High Spot Podcast, HSP Survivor Series preview, guys. The road to WrestleMania season. It only comes once a year, guys, and it starts now. You guys can forget about the Thanksgiving Day parades. You forget about the turkeys in the oven. You can forget about decorating your Christmas trees and waiting for that ball to drop and count Happy New Year. I am waiting for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not because I like that area. I am just waiting for that area because WrestleMania is my Christmas, and I can't wait for it to happen. It starts at Survivor Series, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you guys have enjoyed listening to us and watching us here on YouTube, too, because we are the Just Your Wrecking Crew. For my tag team partner, the scoundrel, Jeff Martin. I am the Trendsetter, Brian Berger. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And remember, we do this for one reason and one reason only. If you don't know already, you're about to find out right now. We do it for one reason. We do it for you,
the crew.